period poverty is you do not have access to a period product. And Share the Dignity did a period pride report that came out this year, just in the last couple of months. 22% of the menstruators that they surveyed within the Australian population had to improvise on period products due to cost. So if you just actually think about that, that means that they could not go to the shops and buy a tampon or a pad, single use or recyclable. These are not options for 22% of the people surveyed. They had to actually look and go, what can I bleed on? Can I bleed on toilet paper? Can I, do I have an old T-shirt that I can cut up and actually bleed on? Do I just need to stay home and bleed here because I don't feel safe and comfortable to go out into the world because I don't have an adequate menstrual product to absorb my blood and I might leak?
Welcome to Wild Flow, the podcast with me, your host, Charlotte Pointeau. I'm a wild feminine cycle coach here for the awakened woman who is ready to reclaim her body, menstrual cycle and feminine power, and to live, love and lead in flow with nature's wisdom. In this podcast, I'll share how you can live in sync with your menstrual cycle and life seasons, heal your relationship with your womb and rites of passages, and embody your wild feminine as a multi-passionate woman in life, mothering and business. It's your time to flourish as a cyclical being in this modern world. Are you ready? Let's flow. On this episode, I spoke with Amanda and Sahara from Weaving the Red Thread. They are both naturopathic menstrual educators who are empowering the reclamation of women's menstruality wisdom. Their teachings nourish holistic well-being. They support girls and women and menstruators to understand their body, mind, heart, sexuality, sociability, and how this flows within their cyclical nature. Amanda and Sahara are based in the Hunter region of New South Wales, Australia. They are hosting an online fundraiser of the amazing awarded Pandora's Box documentary, which unmasks the global pandemic of menstrual inequity, when this is going to be followed by a panel discussion. All the proceeds are to support the Share the Dignity, Australia's Christmas appeal. And they really want to see Australia lead the way in positive menstrual well-being and supporting period poverty awareness. So this documentary is going to be screened on the 18th of November and you are invited. Today, though, we had a really important conversation about what period poverty actually is and why this is something that even in countries like Australia, we really need to be paying attention, because it's very, very common for people to not be able to access period products, but also adequate menstrual education because of the significant, overwhelming taboo around periods and blood and menstruation. And so today we spoke about what it is and what we can do about it. Simple ways that we can be activists in our own homes, families, friendship groups, and also communities. And how by coming along to watch the screening of Pandora's Box, which is online, we are supporting a fantastic charity to do really important work. So listen in and check out the show notes to book your tickets to come along and watch the screening that you'll also get 48 hours access to. So even if you can't make it live, so wherever you are in the world, this is one for you. Okay, enjoy. Okay, today I'm joined by Amanda and Sahara from Weaving the Red Thread here for a really important conversation about menstrual cycle awareness and the importance of having education and access to period products and the special work that they're doing. So thank you both so much for being here. It's really lovely to have you. How are you both today?
Yeah, thank you for having us here today. I'm really good. I'm Amanda, and thankfully the weather gods are really being nice to me. There's lots of sunshine outside of my place at the moment.
And how about you, Sahara?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you so much for having us today. And I wanted to congratulate you on being nominated for your coaching awards as well. I saw your post last night and just wanted to take a moment to celebrate you and the amazing work that you're doing. It's just quite incredible, the ripples that are coming forward from the work that you're putting out into the world. And it's awesome that you're being recognized for it.
Oh, thank you so much for seeing that and celebrating with me. I so appreciate that. I really do. Thank you. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Oh, I'd love to start with a cycle check-in, if that's okay with both of you. I think it's so lovely to hear where we're each at, if you have a menstrual cycle, that is. It's always so lovely to kind of frame a conversation with where we're coming from and getting a sense of how that feels for us today and where our energies might be at. So I'm on day 11 and feeling very much in my inner spring, and I've had a beautiful gradual rise of energy, but that's been kind of dampened a bit by a few terrible nights sleep because of my 2-year-old who just does not want to sleep. So, but otherwise, yeah, feeling very joyful, I think, and creative. I'm really feeling that spring vibes, even though it's rainy and quite cold here today. Quite contrast to where you are. How about you? Would you be happy to share where you're at in your cycle if you have one?
So I am at day 2 of my cycle, and actually feeling really rested over the last couple of days. There's been some big intensities in my household. My children are a little bit older, so I've got 11 and 9 and 7, and there's been lots of transition with going back to school. So I've been taking lots of extra self-care this last couple of days and carving out time to rest, and really tapping into the dreaming space. So feeling good and grounded, kind of glad that this is not a visual podcast because I'm definitely in that cave space of just holding energy within.
Beautiful. Thank you for being here whilst you're bleeding. Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful.
And I'm on day 24 of a 26-day cycle. And last night I felt myself just dissolve into the void. So today I feel very floaty, and dissolved is just the word. Like I kind of feel like I'm really kind of not here, but I am here. And just am appreciating that space to dissolve and to be present in the place in between. I feel like I'm in the in-between worlds. Menstruation and bleeding is a front of me, and I haven't landed there, but I'm sort of coming out of the cycle into the space between those two. And yes, aware that my words will be less eloquent because I'm less present in this plane.
I love that so much. Yeah, in that void, that space between, and feeling in that neither here nor there, and that's that sort of vagueness that's coming in. That I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I love how we're all at slightly different points, so it's going to be just really lovely to have that in mind as we weave this conversation together. Thank you both for sharing. So you two are partners in work. You've created Weaving the Red Thread. I would love to hear if you could share with us some of the work that you do and how you found each other and founded Weaving the Red Thread, and how you got to the place you're at today.
Sure. So Sahara and I are both very similar in our background. We're both naturopathic menstrual educators, and we live fairly close to each other. So I'm out in Largs near Maitland, and Sahara's based in Newcastle area. And we were doing similar work within our regions, and we got really excited because we were like, yay, somebody else is doing this really important work. And so when we connected at the time where there was actually a call out from a local community elder up around Port Macquarie region, and who's one of my mentors, who's just beautiful. And she was looking for and asking for people to come into her region to support some menarche education, some premenstrual education for mothers and daughters and families. And that's really where Weaving the Red Thread was born, from this community call out for deep knowledge around the menstrual cycle, but to help this transition through from young girl into maidenhood and supporting the mothers and families alongside of her. Yeah. So we're almost at our year birthday. We've kind of hit it with Beltane. And we've got some feedback yesterday from that beautiful mentor of ours who's in Port Macquarie, and she just shared with us how the community has continued to grow and what they've embedded in place with the girls coming into Red Tent, and some of the transitions and friendships that have created through the work that we did with those big workshops there and presence. Did you want to add anything, Sahara?
So Amanda and I are both individually and collectively really passionate about educating and supporting and nourishing girls, women, menstruators, and men as well. We feel like it's really important to have everyone in on this conversation so that we can move beyond it being a just silent internal conversation, so that women and girls and menstruators can actually get the support that they need to be cyclical beings. And that fuels everything that we're doing here at Weaving, is to create a community where people can come to find education, inspiration, nourishment, support, and a place where they feel that they can relax, and that the narrative that's being shared is supporting them in their journey. So creating community is a really big focus for us, and that's what we're going to be launching next year as well. We've kind of, in the year that we've been together, we've been exploring different avenues of how to share this in a effective way, and we've received this clarity. It's like we've been in the inner winter of our business, and we've received the visioning and the clarity, and we're transitioning very slowly into that inner spring, which will be with the launch of our offer next year, which is, this online interactive community to support people exploring their cyclical nature and how to flow with that with self-understanding and ease, to honour where they are and what their needs are.
Wow, you do such special work. That's really it sounds so impactful what you're doing with that community, and then having realized like how you're making the difference and how the work is impacting people, and seeing that, love the way you described it as you've had your inner winter for your first year, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
And now that it's all coming together and you're transitioning into the spring of your business, that community, I think that's divine, and really affirm from my perspective as well the importance of having a community around this, and it not being something that, like you said, is something we're doing on our own in silos, and not talking, not sharing, and not understanding the differences that we can all have and all experience these things differently. And I love that you're bringing men into the conversation as well. I think it's it's like the next hurdle. It's like, the people who are bleeding need to understand what's happening for them, and then the people around us, the other half of the population who are affected by the cycles and our cycles as well, and are empowered to have that knowledge and understanding of what they're witnessing and what their part to play in celebrating the cycle and supporting the menstruators around them, and changing that collective way of life that can become more cyclical as well.
Yeah, it's quite amazing when we've worked with men individually or in the workshops to just see them, because they have a lived experience, because they've lived with women and menstruators, and for them to then get a cognitive understanding of what they've been experiencing, and then for them to go, oh, wow, okay, I can see how I can show up in the different areas of the cycle, and how ultimately for me, if we all kind of have this understanding of ourselves within our own nature and our own cycles, and we share with them their cycle, and they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know I had a cycle and that I was affected by cycles, that we have an increased ability to support each other and to share love, which for me is one of the ultimate things in being a human, is the connection that we can have here on this planet and the joy that we can have from that. And when we can understand another person's needs, we can consider them, and the connection that we can have can be so much greater. So when we share with the women too that the men have a cycle and that they have needs just like we have needs, they're like, oh, wow. So the capacity to increase our ability to connect increases when we understand each other's biological cycles and the fact that we're affected by the planetary universe cycles collectively. And you just see people just relax and go, oh, wow, oh my goodness, okay. And it just creates this thread going forward that allows for harmony and cohesiveness at a completely different level.
And I would say as well, you know, mothers of sons are desperately seeking this information because they want to be enhancing their children's well-being and understanding and compassion for all beings. And so when we start to bring these conversations into the whole community, we create cultural change, not just women advocating for themselves. It's shift.
Yeah, very special. I agree. I hear that a lot of women wanting to know, and of opportunities to educate and support their boys so that they can be the change makers and the space holders. And I think that's fantastic. So congratulations to the both of you for an incredible first year, and I'm very excited to see what comes from this with the next phase, with your spring phase.
Yes.
And one of those things that you are advocating for at the minute is period poverty. And you're holding an online fundraiser, a screening of a movie called Pandora's Box coming up soon, with all proceeds going to Share the Dignity. And I just really want to hear more about this. And I'd love to have a conversation about period poverty to start with, and to ask you to explain to everyone what that is and why it's something that we need to be mindful of, and how it's impacting people.
So Share the Dignity is an amazing Australian charity that supports lots of other charities as well. And the reason that we chose Share the Dignity to fundraise on behalf of was because the real world impact that flows through the money that's coming from the fundraiser goes towards filling bags of period products that can support. So one ticket from the fundraiser sale supports the purchase of 4 lots of pads or tampons or a cup for a menstruator in need. And that's delivered throughout the whole of Australia, which is amazing. The screening of Pandora's Box is actually an international award-winning film. We're really excited. It dives into, it's a 75-minute documentary, and we follow different cultures and their experiences of period poverty. I think period poverty is very, I don't know if people understand that it's occurring in Australia as well. So we're really looking to lift the lid on that menstrual reality of beginning these really important conversations around what are the statistics around period poverty? And I know Sahara's got all of the statistics ready to go, so I'm going to let her do statistics. But what is actually the reality in Australia? That's the conversation we want to get started as well. So the documentary will be amazing. We've been so supported by Diva Cares, who owns the licensing for the screenings. And their CEO, international CEO, is going to be doing the introduction to the screening for us. Helen Connolly, who's released the Menstruation Matters report, the South Australian Commissioner for Youth and Children and Young People, will be doing an introduction to our panel. And our panellist is actually going to have Share the Dignity's founder and coming to speak with us about the actual reality of working within Australia around period poverty. So we're going to have the panelist of there's some researchers, there's some menstrual educators, there's Share the Dignity CEO. Sahara and I are going to be the moderating or speaking. We haven't really worked that one out yet, but one of us will take a naturopathic approach and menstrual approach and stand on that panel. And we're really looking to spread this out as far and wide as we can to begin these conversations for our entire family, because period poverty is not just an inability to access period products. That part is still really prevalent in Australia, and that's devastating in its own right. But what we're seeing is so many girls and menstruators do not have an understanding of their body, and period poverty is as much about a lack of menstrual education and a lack of cycle education as it is about a lack of access to period products. And, one of the latest studies that was released this year still shows that 1 in 10 girls don't know what's happening to them when they get their first period. We're seeing something like that. I think the statistic, and Sahara might pull me up on this, that 60% of girls didn't feel like they had been properly educated on how to manage their periods in day-to-day life. Those are devastating statistics. And that's really where we want the emphasis and the understanding to start these conversations around period poverty to really shift, and that it's happening, it's prevalent, and it needs to be shifting and changing. Sahara, would you like to jump in with anything statistic-wise? Because I'm sure you've got the whole thing ready to go.
Yeah, stats don't stay in my head, so I've got them in front of me. And at a very, very basic level, period poverty is you do not have access to a period product. And Share the Dignity did a period pride report that came out this year, just in the last couple of months. 22% of the menstruators that they surveyed within the Australian population had to improvise on period products due to cost. So if you just actually think about that, that means that they could not go to the shops and buy a tampon or a pad, single use or recyclable. These are not options for 22% of the people surveyed. They had to actually look and go, what can I bleed on? Can I bleed on toilet paper? Do I have an old T-shirt that I can cut up and actually bleed on? Do I just need to stay home and bleed here because I don't feel safe and comfortable to go out into the world because I don't have an adequate menstrual product to absorb my blood and I might leak? So when we actually bring it down to that very basic understanding, 22% of Australian menstruators surveyed did not have access to a period product because of the cost associated. So when we're talking about poverty, we're talking about finances. They do not have the money to actually buy a period product. And we've seen a move with the abolishment of the period tax, which took about a 20-year campaign to actually abolish this tax on what was seen as a luxury good for women, and actually going, this is an essential good. Without this, we are limited in what we may or may not be able to do. And that we see in more we relate to developing countries and think about girls who have got their periods and they may not be able to go to school because they don't have access to period products. This is not just a third world issue. This is an issue that is here, alive and happening in Australia. And that's something that I don't think people have so much awareness of. And that's why we also chose Share the Dignity, because they're helping Australian girls, women and menstruators. We've totally got support for any international girl, women and menstruator. And as an Australian, I want to help in my own backyard. And even though we're a developed country, we have lots of issues here in period poverty and poverty in general. And I feel it's really important to help our neighbours and then to help our neighbours who are further afield. And if we just look at some of the other stats there, that came out in the survey, 40% of menstruators had to change to a less suitable product due to cost. So they had access to a product, but maybe it wasn't the product that they're most comfortable with, or that they would like to use, or that they even support from a sustainable environmental, because we do know that menstrual products cause huge plastic impact to our environment. They don't have the funds to actually, then they're using a product that, yes, it's doing the job, but maybe it's having adverse effects for the environment and they wish they could do different. And the other big stat that came out from that survey was 49% of menstruators had to wear a tampon or pad for more than 4 hours because they didn't have access to more. So they're looking at how much their money could buy for their period and going, okay, I have these many pads or tampons. I know that my period is going to last for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. I have to ration them out so that I can actually meet my blood needs. And we know that especially with internal tampons, that having them in for a prolonged period of times can have adverse effects to our holistic well-being. So the fact that they're having to wear them for longer than what is hygienic and health, that brings up this issue too of that, yes, I have a product, but I don't have enough. So Share the Dignity is working super hard. They have drives in March and August, and they've got the Christmas appeal. They have a fun run. They do all sorts of different stuff to raise money from the Australian public to support the Australian need of period poverty. And yeah, so we feel really humbled to actually be supporting that. And the response that we've had from the Newcastle and Hunter community on a business level supporting us has been quite amazing. And it always excites me and inspires me when having the menstrual conversation is more open than what you expect. Like, we're all aware that our society and culture has been living under and is living under a menstrual taboo, which tells us not to talk about menstruating. And when you actually do start to talk to people, this is kind of, I think, the thing about taboos. It's like, mental health, if you look at that, it's like, for a long time, it's like, do not share with people about your mental health status because there's stigma associated with that. But as a human, when you share with another human, I'm not doing okay, they're like, oh, me too. It gives actual permission for the conversation to happen. So as we're having these conversations with business community, we're actually being really inspired by the fact that they are responding to our conversations, and that this conversation is not as closed as what people may perceive. The closeness comes from our own internal story. And it's always really interesting for me as a menstrual educator of when I actually feel awkward talking about it, because it's like, oh, okay, there's another level of the menstrual taboo that is inhabited in my psyche and my body somewhere. And that's really interesting. Okay, let's shift that and work through that, because my life's work is to open up this conversation and to support people to understand what's happening within their being, because it's not just a biological experience, it's a mental, emotional, physical, social, and sexual experience that's constantly in movement. And that, yeah, it's just amazing that society is opening up, and we're seeing that with, we had Australia's first period summit this year, and people from all different industries in Australia were called together from, Helen Colony's report, which was just amazing. And she was talking to the teenagers. So I think as adults, we forget to talk to the kids, and we get into this adult role where we've been sold, I think, this cultural and society lie and another taboo where talking about puberty menstruation, sex is awkward and we're uncomfortable with it. And it really blows my mind because every single human being has been through it, and they've been through it and experienced whatever their experience was, whatever degree of comfortableness, discomfort, isolation, confusion, the journey they've been on. And as a community and a society and educational system, we kind of step away from our kids when it's the biggest transformation they've had from being birthed to being a toddler. During that period of time, they've had to learn how to actually be in their body and hold it and move it. They've learned how to actually articulate speech. They've learned how to navigate the beginning of emotions. Their brain has been developing, their body has been developing. The same thing happens at puberty. Our kids are undergoing, on average, a 10-year kind of transformation that is physical, emotional, social, mental, cognitive. Every aspect of their body is transforming, and we kind of go, work it out. And we wonder why our kids aren't thriving on the other side. So I really invite people through these conversations, like watching Pandora's Box with your teenagers. It's like, how do we have these conversations to start a dialogue? And you know what? Parents, I get it. It's uncomfortable, but that's your uncomfortability. That's your story. So you can put that to one side and deal with it. In the meantime, you can be present for your kid that's asking a question, because that was one thing that came out in Helen's report, was that the kids are asking for teachers who are comfortable to teach this material, because they pick up on the anxiety. They pick up, I don't want to be talking about this. And the reality is they have questions because they're changing and they want to know what's going on. And so if we can answer these questions with the best ability that we have at that time, they're going to come back when they've got another question. Because if we can't answer them, they're going to go look for that information from the internet, from other kids, and we can't be guaranteed that the information that they get is going to be helpful or that it's appropriate to their development. And once you know something, you know something. Once you've seen something, you've seen something. And once you've, received something and you've started a pathway with it, if it's incorrect, we all know the reclamation of actually going back and reseeding information that actually is true and helpful.
Yeah. You are speaking my language. That's amazing. All of what you said is just, I just sat here nodding and just thinking that was such a powerful delivery of so much really devastating information, as you said, Amanda, as well, with that the way you described it. It really is. And I'm sat here feeling rage, and even though I know this, it still stirs up so much emotion and passion to want to change this, but also just I have a lot of hope for the future, and that, we're doing so much work collectively. There's so many people now who are doing the kind of work that you and I are doing, and these conversations are being had. And like you were saying about having all these reports at the minute in the forum, and I think the next generation are really, it blows me away with how, even though they can sense our discomfort and the shame, and they're receiving so many messages about, like you say, don't talk about this, they're asking the questions and they're pushing us to embrace our own wounding and shame around this and transform. And I have so much hope for the future that they're going to be able to guide their peers and their own children to a world that really celebrates, period power. But it's it goes so much further than that, as you and I know. When we embrace our periods, we embrace our bodies, and we embrace our full spectrum of emotions, and we can learn to be at home in ourselves, and we can see ourselves fitting in and belonging, and changing the earth on that much greater scale of changing the way we live in a way that really honors women and women's bodies and the cycles and all of that. But Wow, just the information that you shared there really, really knocked my socks off. Hearing, I just want to go straight back to that statistic that you said at the top about 22% of people who are bleeding having to improvise. And it's something that I think a lot of people just can't imagine. Being able to, there's a lot of reusable products available now. And I think a lot of people just think, well, the answer is to, everyone should just go and buy a moon cup, and then you can use it over and over, and you only need one, and it's one investment. But that's a lot of money. Like, some of the brands cost 50 Australian dollars, and if you've got a child who can't go and spend a few dollars on a packet of tampons or pads, how are they to be able to save up to buy this cup? And then there's the whole aspect of needing to sanitize it. And how do you do that in a household where there's shame and secrecy around periods, and you can't exactly just pop your moon cup in a pan on the stove and disinfect it for 5 minutes in front of, in that way. And it just goes, I think it's, this, I see a lot of conversations about, just how much more available these reusable products are, but they're just so out of reach for so many people still. And that's not just necessarily the answer. And I hear from people as well who share that their parents might have had the money to purchase products for them, but the act of having to ask for the money or for the product is too much, and people have felt that they couldn't do that and instead have opted to bleed into toilet paper or something. And the number of girls I hear from who at school, particularly in the primary years, we know that periods can begin younger than they perhaps might have done in the past. And there are 9-year-old girls who are bleeding and not having access to any sanitary bins in the school, and the teachers saying things like, well, what do you need them for? Just not having that knowledge. It's really there's so much in this. It's got so many, it shows up in so many different ways, and it has very real short-term effects and very real long-term effects as well, about how we learn our worth and learn to connect to our bodies and to each other as well. So I'm really happy to be having this conversation. And so I'd love to know how people can get involved. If there are two things. If you're somebody who's listening to this thinking, well, how can I do my bit? I'm not a menstrual educator. I'm, how do I as like a single person contribute to changing this? Do you have any suggestions for how people can make a difference?
Yes, gosh, there's so many ways, and the simplest one being start the conversation. Just start sharing your story and being open to hearing other people's conversations. You can, if you're looking to support this awareness and you do have the ability to purchase extra products when you go shopping, Share the Dignity has lots of drop-off points. So Bunnings is one of the big ones, and they're doing a Christmas appeal at the moment that Bunnings is a drop-off point for, and it's a fill the bag. So all the information on how to really practically step in and support community around you is on the Share the Dignity website, which we can send you as well to pop onto your links. If you're able to, purchasing an online ticket and bringing your family to the screening of Pandora's Box is a wonderful way, because Sahara and I have been working on this for months. We've had to pivot a lot, but this is all social advocacy for us. This is all volunteer based for us. So every dollar that we've got is going straight to Share the Dignity, and they use their funds very clearly to support the needs of menstruators. And not only, they support menstruators and into the mature years, so into the postnatal years, as postnatal, yes, but also into the postmenopausal years of women who may not be able to afford products like pads from leakage as well. So they have a really varied support that they put in place. So there's lots of different ways to support, either physically, financially, if you're able to, or just with that beautiful opening of conversations and starting to do this shift of culture work as well.
Yeah, and shifting in that conversation, that shift first has to come within self to feel some sense of comfort before you can verbalize it. For some people, verbalizing creates comfort. For other people, they need to create some internal comfort before they can verbalize. And some of the tips that we give to moms around this is to create a positive menstrual bathroom. So to actually look at your bathroom and go, whatever period products you use, hidden in the back of the cupboard so that they're not affronting to anyone. So no one sees them. And they only come out very discreetly when it's your time of the month and very discreetly used. So to actually change your bathroom up, bring some light into your bathroom and bring your menstrual products to a place where they're not in the corner with the spiders and the cobwebs, and put them, next to the toothpaste, next to the cotton buds. They're just another thing that we use for self-care. So when we can actually take the charge out of things, we can start to take the charge out of the conversation. And if you use reusables, you might have a bucket in the bathroom, which again, might be uncomfortable, but it starts that conversation with whoever you may live with, that you're actually in that part of your cycle without actually having to share. We don't need to walk around with, I'm on day 24. We can share that we're on day 24. This is our personal prerogative to this, and that the actual understanding is first for ourselves about where we are in our own nature and what is more open to us and what is not as open to us in our cyclical nature, so that we can utilize it to optimize our experience of ourselves, our day, and what we're creating. And that to share that with other people helps people understand where we're coming from, helps other people to be supportive if we're needing support. And that can take, for some people, quite a period of time. So it's about being comfortable with that conversation with yourself and the little things that you do for that to spread into your environment. So we call it role modeling. So how you actually show up in yourself, that filters out and ripples into the world around you. And for me, it's probably the easiest way to have the conversation is start to create that comfort within self and start to live little bit by little bit. I love how Red School talks about the 1%. Like if you can just take 1%, that, just change your bathroom 1%, change your social commitments 1%, change something just 1% that supports your nature. You're having the conversation without having to be having it in a way that you may feel uncomfortable and may be triggering, because we do have a frequency that tells us not to have the conversation. So how can you break that frequency down in a way that supports you and is not confronting to you? And that's individual to each person, because we're all wired so differently and we all express so differently. So that would be my biggest tip, is having the conversation with self and letting it filter out. And one of the easiest ways is just to make your bathroom more friendly to the fact that you're cyclical. And that's not just your menstrual products, but also it might be essential oils. It might be magnesium salts that you actually use for a bath. So it's actually not just menstrual, it's cyclical self-care. So how am I actually caring for myself as I move through the cycle? And this is something that Amanda and I are aware that there's such a focus on reclaiming the period and reclaiming the bleeding. And it's like, yes, and this is part of a cycle. And it is one phase of the cyclical needs. And as we are aware of the cyclical needs throughout the whole cycle, we've got different needs everywhere. And our self-care is really different in different places. It's just at the bleeding time, you may be demanded to self-care in a way that you haven't elsewhere. And that it's a feedback system, to a biological feedback system to how you've been caring for yourself throughout the rest of your the cycle that's preceded the menstruation. So just gentle. I think it's really gentle to your nature, whatever that means for you. Just gentle to your nature, making little changes so that you're more comfortable with the fact that you do bleed and that other people inquire about. Delanne had a great thing. She was curiouser and curiouser. The more curious we can be about our nature, the more that it is about an exploration and an unfurling of actually self-knowing. And I recently was listening to someone, and I don't know who it was, so I can't credit it, but they were talking about the self-development industry. And if we actually focused from self-development and about this sense of achievement and going somewhere within ourselves to self-inquiry and the curiosity of self, that leads to self-evolution, which you can say is self-development if you want, but it has a totally different energy to it and a different focus, instead of it being for, people who understand this language, sort of inner summer achievement, external agency, development. It's actually this inquiry and encounter of self and a consideration of self to care for self. And out of that, there will be flourishing always.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I really love the idea of just the simplicity of making things very visible in your bathroom. I think absolutely, when you say bring things out from the corners where the cobwebs and the spiders live, yeah, let's make it front and center. It's just another self-care product. And the way that, you've talked about honoring your whole needs and your whole nature across the whole cycle, and normalizing that, like you say, the bleed is something that grabs your attention. And if you've tried to ignore it, your cyclic nature, then that's the bleed that's going to get your attention. But it's honoring that wholeness, the whole cycle. And I really love, it's we can do very practical things, like you were saying, Amanda, like, having conversations and giving our money or products and doing what we can. But it also starts with self-inquiry and healing our own wounding around it, and getting to a place where we feel able to open those conversations and role model and show our family and our children, even, teeny tiny children, it's not something we need to hide. And I think that women think that it's something that, children always want to barge in the bathroom when you're on the toilet, when they're small, and instead of shutting them out, let them in and see. And I think it's profound, just the simple act of letting them see, letting it be visible as well. So much in there. Thank you. Amanda, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say, from a now grown up perspective of those little children that barge into the toilet and see everything and are involved in everything and have thousands of questions about the processes of female bodies. I now have 12 and 7-year-old boys. My daughter knows everything about everything. There's no secrets in our house. And the boys know as much as my daughter does. And so now they'll actually trigger and say, "Oh, Mum, the moon's really dark. Does that mean that it's your moon time? And could I get you a cup of tea? Or, do you need me to why don't you rest, Mum, and I'll go, because this has just happened for me. I've run you a bath, Mum. Why don't you go and do that? And we'll actually just make some toasties for dinner." And I'm like, oh, I love you guys.
That's the dream. That's the goal.
Right. And I think about their partners, and, we do a lot of, because naturopath runs through my everything, we do a lot of work on foods and foods that nourish, and reflections of when I'm not having a great cycle. Actually, why is this cycle not great? Well, Mummy didn't have a lot of time in the last couple of weeks, and actually my stress levels have been higher, and that means this is what's happened. And so they can really see the impact throughout the whole cycle of making sure that your body has what it needs to be really healthy and well. And reflecting back, that comes our period every month, going, here you go, let me give you a report card of your health and well-being over the last month. So yes.
Yeah. And those little people, like, we know they're learning from us from the moment they open their eyes up.
Mm-hmm.
So the more that we can normalize health and well-being, to just make that a bigger conversation as well, the more that they understand how to be healthy in themselves, because they're seeing it role modeled in front of them. So I totally hear you, Charlotte, and saying, you know, as young as possible, if you know, whenever you choose or you become a parent, don't wait until puberty to start opening up these conversations. It's a way of being and a way of living, and it's a lifestyle that comes to health. And I think this is the biggest fallacy of the health industry, is that health comes from a product, and menstrual health, holistic health, does not come from a product. It comes from how you live each day, and that day has an effect on the next day that follows. And we know that the egg that is ovulated, it's being nourished for 3 cycles prior. So, you know, if your menstrual cycle in that one hasn't been that wonderful in a physical, mental, or emotional experience, it might be actually inquiring back, what was happening 3 months ago? So we're constantly, as a human, we have this incredible complex biofeedback system, and we're not taught within our school systems to understand it. We're not taught really about the complexity of what happens within our skin. So much is happening within our skin just to keep us here in this moment, and it has such an incredible intelligence, and it's constantly reorientating itself so that its homeostasis, which is its internal balance, is actually happening. And when we are stressed, that will throw out our internal balance. And one of the things that is affected is our menstrual cycle, because cortisol takes the building blocks for progesterone, and therefore we have less progesterone. So therefore we may have increased premenstrual or menstrual language. I don't actually even like to use the word symptoms, because it's a language. The body is always talking to us. It's giving us feedback. When we use the word symptoms, we're pathologizing something. And yes, there is more pathology to the menstrual cycle than there ever has been. So we need to question that and go, what is going on in our ecosystem? And when we think about nutrition is not just food. Nutrition is our thoughts. Nutrition is our feelings. Nutrition is the people that we're hanging out in. Nutrition is the quality of our environment. How polluted is it? And as much as we live in an incredibly technological, expansive, connected world, we also live in the most isolated and most polluted and undernourished time in history. And our body is speaking to us saying, hey, I'm not okay. But the only way it knows how to talk to us is in physiological language, which we in our medical framework see as symptoms, which relate to a problem, instead of, oh, actually, what's this telling me? What is this actually telling me? It's a narrative there. And yes, there may be pathology. We need to actually have a look at that. But what is it telling us? So when we've got young girls going to GPs and being put on the pill, they don't even actually get to learn their language, and the language of their body, which is being interpreted as a symptom which needs to be fixed. It's actually that gateway into inquiry. So yes, that's my just little add-on there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm just hearing you and thinking, you know, I had completely lost my awareness of the fact that the egg is being nourished for 3 whole months. Like, I'd completely forgotten that as being a truth. And you know, like I'm learning from what you were just sharing. And you know, you talked about period poverty as being like a lack of access to education as well. And you know, all of these things, it's like, you know, we just really need to get this word out there that, like you say, you know, it impacts the decisions we make about our health and how much we, medicalize, pathologize, and treat our bodies with medicines when we don't need to. And instead of just being able to come back and tune in and asking, what's going on and on that level. And so much in there.
So much. And that our endocrine system is so interrelated. Our menstrual cycle is one aspect. Our reproductive hormones are one aspect of that beautiful menstrual cycle. But that our adrenal health, like Sahara was talking about, our stress levels, our thyroid health, our brain function, it's all so interrelated. And that holistic view of how we nourish ourselves is reflected through our cycle. And women have this amazing opportunity throughout their lifetime. But, how we process through our beginning of our cycles, how we learn through our cycles, we take it into the altar of birth. We become mothers with this information. We become menopausal women. This transition through the menstruality timeline. This is big, transformative information that when women have access, and girls and menstruators have access to this, it changes how they function in themselves, within the world, within their motherhood journeys or their womanhood or their journeys through life. Makes a really big impact.
Yeah, and so not having access to this kind of information, it just perpetuates what starts off as already disadvantage. Not having access to products, not having access to knowledge, and therefore not being able to look after themselves, and then potentially having a menstrual experience. You said about not using the word symptoms, but that having a worse outcomes to do with health. When you're experiencing poverty, your stress levels, it's fair to say maybe a lot higher, and the knock-on effects, and it's like this feedback system that's just perpetuating the problem, and then is inherited and passed on through the lineage as well.
It's still taking up to 8 years now. Up to 8 years to get a diagnosis of a menstrual health dysfunction. If there is real pathology there, it's such a system that needs an overhaul. We need to be getting this information before we start menstruating, so that we've got access to what is normal versus when is there a need to actually reach out and do more than cyclical self-care. Like, when do you really need to know more? And unfortunately, most of those younger women and girls, they're landing on the doors of GPs that are not perhaps asking the right questions. That's something that Sahara and I are launching next year as a practitioner education program, because even our naturopaths and our yoga teachers and our massage therapists and if you're working with women or girls or menstruators, one of the questions you need to ask them is, hey, where are you in your menstrual cycle? How are you experiencing it? And I've loved being able to be in partnership. Sahara and I have such a clear view of what makes a productive business structure within a feminine leadership model. And we begin our chats with, where are you in your menstrual cycle? How are you experiencing it? And still, when we're in each other's lives all the time, it's really essential that this is coming into normalization for the culture of, actually, if I want to know how you are, I do need to know where you are in your cycle and how is that going for you.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think as we started this conversation with a check-in, it gives such a lens as to how you're experiencing your day in relation to what's going on in your body, where are you, how are you feeling, but also that reminder for people to check in and take that moment just to pause and feel and to notice, in a world where commonly where a lot of people are up in their heads thinking, or just flying by the seat of their pants through the day. It's just such a simple way to check in as well. But yeah, having that, like having that as an anchor, as like a portal inwards to business, like you say, relationships, parenting, obviously healthcare, friendships, all the things, every aspect of life. I just love that we can raise the awareness that everything is influenced by not just where you are in your cycle, but where each other in the dynamic are as well, and how that will change depending on where you are.
Yeah. It's beautiful when we're running workshops. Quite often it will just happen that Sahara and I are at completely different poles. So she'll be up while I'm down, and I'll be up while she's down, and it's working really well. At the moment we're coming back closer together. But it's when we're doing big workshops, it's pretty amazing to see us just go, whoop, let's be at different ends to meet different needs.
I was thinking when you said earlier on about who's going to do the moderation at the events, who's going to do that? Would that depend on where you're at in your cycle?
Probably, yes.
Yeah, love it.
Well, it depends on how we're experiencing that as well. You know, some days it's like, yes, shine a light on me, I'm ready. And other days it's like, no, give me stuff to read and I'll respond.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about that, so if people want to come along and participate, so the screening is on the 18th of November, is that right?
Yep, Thursday night the 18th, and we start at 7 p.m, which is Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time.
Yeah, and that's and it's online.
Yeah, all online.
You can watch from your own home.
We've got a few different options for tickets. There's a single ticket if you just want to come by yourself, or screen it by yourself. We've got a household ticket that's available. We've popped up a small business ticket for you to send through staff networks that are, I have a feeling that's got 4 tickets or 5 maybe. And then we've got a large business ticket which has got up to 10 different screening options that you can send out to your staff members. So yes, lots of different options. Fully encourage, grab the popcorn, grab some comfy things. If you're somewhere that you're not having to isolate, grab your friends and have them over for a bit of a night of celebration. And, you know, the screening will actually be available for 48 hours afterwards. So if you can't attend live, that will be up and ready to go for the next 2 days. And our panel discussion will also be recorded, and that will be available for those 48 hours as well, which will be really exciting to see all the panelists. So we're hoping that this goes out into communities that would otherwise, we've had to really look at it as a blessing to shift, because our original date was at the cinema in Newcastle and was when all the lockdown stuff happened. So we've just had to say thank you to the angels who have gifted us, and all of the people that have helped us to get this screening online now, and our sponsors who have just been amazingly supportive, so that we can sell as many tickets as we can for Share the Dignity and get that money going to menstruators in need.
Yeah,
fantastic.
And bring your questions. Like for the panel is there to answer your questions. As said, we've got Rochelle, the founder of Share the Dignity, who, you know, social advocacy work is damn hard, and I have so much respect for what she has built and created in Share the Dignity. We've got menstrual researchers who are researching, they're scientists, and this is their jam. We've got and the researchers aren't just in the science land, they're in the cultural, artistic land as well. And then we've got naturopathic wisdom, naturopathic menstrual wisdom. So, you know, when you actually register, it says, do you have any questions? And we will be giving those questions to the panel, and the panel will be asking your questions. And if we've got an overflow of questions, we hopefully can keep the panel on, and we'll keep recording. But aware that, you know, people are turning up for a certain period of time, so we need to be respectful of people's time. But yes, the panel hopefully can answer those questions. If not, Amanda and I will take on the rest of the questions that aren't answered, because that's part of opening up this conversation. And I kind of feel to share with you, we put together our own definition of period poverty. And for us, it's a combination of a whole lot of different things. And I just want to state before I start sharing with it that it's a combination of a lack of a lot of things. It's not a combination of no to things. We're in a process of change. So when we look at the menstrual taboo and a taboo's life cycle, we're in the place of questioning and challenging that taboo. So if you spoke to your mother or your grandmother or your great-grandma, their experience would be very different from what we're experiencing right now. So we're in this potent portal of change and creating a way forward for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. And at present, we see period poverty as a combination of the lack of access to affordable and sustainable period products, the lack of practical information on how to use period products, how to dispose of them or clean them, the lack of access to menstrually safe and friendly toilets with hand washing facilities and menstrual product bins, the lack of access to positive menstrual education about biology, physiology, and cyclical living, the lack of education about normal versus abnormal menstrual physiology and contraception options, the lack of menstrual and menopausal workplace and school wellbeing policies. And I'm excited to say, even though they're all a lack, they are in the process of change. And for the first time, I've been in this industry since from menarche, I was so happy and excited for my own introduction to becoming a cyclical being, and was confounded with such disappointment at the reality of that once I left school, this has been my journey, I'm 46 now, that we're actually in a period of time where governments are talking about this. We've got actual change happening on an infrastructural level that is happening in business, is happening in politics, is happening in schools. That all takes time to filter through. But we are actually in that place where the no has changed to the lack. And with all the work that there's an amazing community that we're part of, Charlotte's part of, there's an incredible amount of menstrual educators and activists across the globe who are all doing their bit to change this lack to more of a positive. So I feel very excited to actually be in this industry, this part of history, because history is being made. And
yes,
we invite
it is.
you to be part of it. Make history with us. And for me, it's this bigger picture too of just making our humanity normal. We all feel. And if we can all actually sink into wherever we are in our mind, our hearts, our bodies, our spirit, and we can be truthful with ourselves and we can be truthful with others, then this planet becomes a really peaceful place and a loving place and a harmonious place and an expansive place, because I not only see myself, I see you, and I have consideration for you, and I want you to shine like I want myself to shine.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the knowledge you've shared. Thank you for really bringing this conversation to us, to here in Australia, and to everybody listening, which is, overseas as well. And just encourage everybody to, wherever you are in the world, you can jump on and watch this, and hearing that it's available for 48 hours afterwards is absolutely every opportunity to get involved and to watch and to learn and to start conversations and just quietly create change in your own family and friendships as well, and get involved. Thank you so much, both of you, Amanda and Sahara. I really loved this conversation. Before we close, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Honestly, the conversation could go on forever. Getting three menstrual educators together going, let's just chat forever. No, thank you so much for having us on. We're really excited in terms of where we're heading and the movement forwards, and we can't wait to touch back in with you in another 6 months and share with you the opening of the new studio online, and we're excited. we've been accepted to speak at Seven Sisters, so we'll be there in March.
Fantastic.
So we'll have lots of new courses that we're actually in the process of getting ready to launch. So watch this space.
Absolutely. I'll be watching and cheering you on. It's been so lovely to connect with you as well on a personal level for me. We've been following your work, and I think that you're both incredible. I can't wait to see where your work takes you and the impact that you're just going to continue to have. So if people want to, I'll put the link in the show notes for actually getting onto the screening to watch the movie Pandora's Box. But also, if people wanted to connect with you and follow the work that you're doing, and access your future courses, and really benefit from the education that the information that you're sharing, that I see you sharing. I think you're sharing really fantastic stuff. People can find you on Instagram and Facebook. That's right, isn't it? I've got you at Weaving the Red Thread, and I'll put that link in the bio.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. And the website is currently in development. So at the moment, the socials are just the best place to grab us. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I can't wait to watch the movie myself and hear the panel conversation. That's going to be so juicy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, for having us here and for all the work that you do. Like we see what you do, and being nominated for 2 awards shows that other people see what you're doing too, and the impact, the ripples that you're putting out into the world are huge. So thank you for you, and thank you for inviting us into this space with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And just to say to that, like, it's such a thrill to see that, people are valuing the conversations and the, work being done on menstrual education and menarche education. And, it just so helps to get this work, and like I say, the importance of knowing this stuff just out there as well. So I'm super grateful for the platform to be able to do that, and for your support and celebration in that sisterhood. So thank you both. It's really lovely to chat with you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you're loving this podcast and you'd love to help me spread the wisdom shared, please leave a review or rating, or share this with somebody who you think would love to listen in. I'm really passionate about creating ripples of change and getting this information to more women, girls, and people with a cycle, so that they can reclaim their cyclic natures too. And if you'd love to dive in deeper with learning more about how to connect with your cycle and rites of passages, come and join our free Wild Flow Circle community, or choose a course and learn with me on my online learning hub. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, be well and go with the flow of your cyclic nature.